Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another round of session spotlights for Convergence 2026. This is an opportunity for you to get to know our upcoming leaders, their sessions, and give you a better idea of what you would like to sign up for during Convergence 2026. Today, we're going to be hearing from Geri Forkner, Margaret Stump, Marilyn Romatka, Jenny Schu, and Penny Lacroix. Registration is open. We are coming up on the end of priority registration with our general registration opening on Monday, November 10th. So if you're interested in signing up early for classes, tours, and events, please head online or give us a call and we would be happy to help. As a reminder, Convergence 2026 will be taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana from August 12th through the 16th. You can find a digital copy of the registration booklet online, where you'll see all kinds of information about the different sessions and events taking place, including the marketplace, exhibits, fashion show, keynote speaker, tours, and more. We are going to be hosting over 100 sessions, ranging from 90-minute seminars to 3-day workshops. As we learn more about a few of these workshops today, please put any questions that you have in the Q&A section. This is a great time to get answers directly from the instructors. First up, we welcome Geri Forkner, who's going to be talking about weaving with cloth for Nuno felting.
Hello, am I up on your screen now?
You are.
Oh, great. Okay, just a little bit about myself. I am Geri Forkner. I've been teaching kids and adults for more years than I'd like to say. And I pretty much tried making one of everything, but fiber really keeps pulling me back. So now I have this giant encyclopedia of techniques, and I enjoy adding them to the fiber work that I do. Right now, I'm spending my time rescuing scraps from the global scrap heap, mixing art and craft, and just seeing just how much attitude wool can have when I push it as far as it will go. So right now I'm going to do a share screen and tell you a little bit about the workshop. Okay, so this is weaving cloth for Nuno felting. It is a 2-day workshop on Wednesday and Thursday. The pictures that you see here are just to give you an example of some of the giant variety you can have with this technique. We'll spend a day putting a warp on the loom, weaving it off, and then the next day we're going to spend using that cloth as a base for Nuno felting. And the pictures that you see here were all woven on the exact same white warp. Some of them, 2 of them were woven completely with white thread in the warp and the weft, and the one on the right has a little bit different colors in the weft. So these are, I'm going to show you 3 examples of yardage that I've made. These have all been in the Convergence yardage exhibits in the past 3 Convergence. The first one is Appalachian Rainy Day, and this one weighs about 2 pounds. It's a, upholstery weight. It's very heavy. You can put designs on the front as well as the back. And then this is also an all-white warp and weft. The next one that I did is Window View. And this weighs a lot less. It's about 1.5 pounds. Each one of these weighs a little bit less, and this is just to show you the variety of things that you can do with this technique. So the heavier threads that are in the warp and weft, the blue threads, are a combination of wool and cottons, and where the 2 cross each other is a much denser section, so that's why you're getting that 3-dimensional effect. And then the spaces in between are a 20s 2 black thread, and that just gives it this little special look in the window spaces. And then this is the 3rd one that I did. And each one, as I said, gets a little bit lighter. This one weighs just 1 pound, and that includes the beads that are in there. I didn't weigh these until the yardage was finished. So you can see a little detail down there on the right of the beads. And then after Convergence, I cut this up and made it into this little sweater that you see here. There's an asymmetrical piece. There's just so many ways you can take this. So these are pictures from a workshop, and this is to show you this unlimited number of colors of the wool that I'm going to bring to the workshop. I'm going to ask the students to bring their own yarns for warp and weft, but I'm going to supply all of the colors of wool that you can use. So the picture on the left shows a warp on a rigid heddle loom. If you have a rigid heddle loom, you'll be able to warp that in class. And if you have a floor loom, I'm going to send directions for a warp to wind ahead of time. And then the pictures that you see on the right, the warps have been rolled off of the loom. They're spread out on the table, and then the students have laid out the colors of wool that they want to use next to their warp, and they're getting ready to shingle that on to the wool. So if you think, boy, I don't need one more scarf, you can also take this length of cloth that we're going to make and use it to make other things. So all these vessels are made with cloth that I wove ahead of time to use as Nuno felting for the surface of the vessels. And these are getting some differential shrinkage going on. This process is very different from when you put a warp on the loom that alternates a non-shrinking thread with a shrinking thread, a cotton and a wool, and put it in the washing machine and shrink it to get that uh, differential shrinkage, that wonderful puffiness that shows up. That's so much fun. This is a completely different process than that. And sometimes, people have asked me about that. They get confused on that. If you don't want to make vessels, this is the other thing that I've had fun doing with these pieces. And the bodies of these different characters have the woven ground and then wool added to the back of it. So who should take this class? People that like texture, anybody that likes color. That should include everybody that comes to Convergence to begin with. If you're looking for a different class to take, if you have a collection of small amounts of leftover yarns from other projects you need something to do with, if you have, a lot of different fiber content of yarn, this does not rely on whether yarns shrink or don't shrink. So any type of yarn except a heavy rug yarn will work. And people that just want to add some extra skills into their uh, vocabulary of techniques. So supplies, you can see that the supplies are pretty simple. You just need yarns for warp and weft and the tools and scissors and things like that that you would ordinarily bring. A small bar of soap and a towel. If you don't have room in your suitcase, I'm sure you can get that out of your hotel room. You need a container to hold water and some bubble wrap and a half of length of pool noodle. So you will leave with a scarf size piece of fabric that can be used as a scarf if you want. They're really beautiful when they're finished, or you can cut it up and assemble it into other projects. And then skills for combining weaving and felting into one piece. And I'll also send you home with directions for felting without having to roll. People are always just so scared off of wet felting because you have to roll it. We will be rolling it in class. It doesn't take as long as you think it's going to, but I will send you home for directions with how to do that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to coming to New Orleans in the summertime and meeting some new friends and teaching a fun class. So thank you very much.
Thank you. This sounds like such a good one. I've got just a couple questions here to follow up on. So, there is a $30 material fee for this class. Can you talk a little bit about what you're going to provide with that, versus those supplies that students need to bring?
Sure. That's going to cover the cost of any kind of miscellaneous supplies that I'll bring. There is some other kinds of plastics and things involved. And then the colors of the merino wool fleece that you see, that you could see in that one slide. So I'm going to be bringing all of the wools. And, there are a few other miscellaneous supplies that aren't on the list.
Great, great. And this is listed as a beginner class, but is there anything that you think it would be helpful for students to know before they come to the class?
Uh, no, just about any level can do this. It's a fun class. It's just something very different. Um, Longtime weavers just kind of boggles their mind on how this doesn't resemble any kind of warp they have ever put on. It just not even crammed in space. So just come, expect to have a good time playing with a lot of color and texture and having a great project to take home with you.
It looks like it. And I feel like just a comment from looking at those pictures is like, yeah, you're weaving that fabric one day and then felting the next day, but it looks like a very loose weave. So people shouldn't be scared off by that either, right?
Absolutely. I have taught this a number of times, of course, and nobody's ever gone home without a project. So uh, it works every time. It's just convergence. What can I say? Everybody's together that, with the same language and people that understand that language. So people always have such a good attitude. It's always fun.
Absolutely. It's going to be a
Yeah.
great time, good energy. Thank you so much for going more in depth on this class. Again, that was Geri Forkner talking about weaving cloth for Nuno felting, which is one of our 2-day workshops taking place on Wednesday and Thursday, August 12th and 13th. Up next, we've got Margaret Stump, who's going to be talking about pin loom weaving A to Z.
Hi.
Hello.
Um, this is going to be a one-day class, and the intention is to really introduce pin loom weaving to people who have either purchased looms some time ago, thought about doing it, forgot what they were doing, couldn't figure out how to do it, or want to start and learn it right now. So let me back up. My name's Margaret Stump. Like Geri, I've been weaving in one field or another for too many years to count. I used to say I was weaving in new pin loom weaving for over 40 years, but unfortunately the number keeps creeping up more like 50 or 60, and I'm decided to just stick with 40 years. I've written 3 books involving pin loom weaving. I was planning to bring some of those books and holding them up to show everyone, and then realized that somehow along the line I managed to sell all the books and we'll have to get some more. So in the meantime, if you see a book that has a strange horse on the cover, and it says pin loom weaving, that's the first of my 3 books. So you might keep an eye out for the books. In terms of this Convergence class, we're really lucky that we have a full day to work on it. And that means we're going to be starting with a simple introduction to pin loom weaving. So the one item that everybody is going to need to bring will be their own pin loom. And quite honestly, I always have some backup looms if somehow that doesn't work out. So I will have some extra school looms to use in the class if needed. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend some time learning how to pin loom weave. If people already know how, that's simply going to allow them to zip through that particular project quicker and get on to some of the other things we're going to do. So if you wove years ago or have been doing it but need to expand your understanding, please feel free to join the class. I think there's a lot it has to offer, whether or not you've ever picked up a pin loom before. Because I believe that every time we pick up a loom, we have to go home with a project. We will have a project specific to the morning class, and that is the flat rat. I'm going to hold it very still if I can. It's just a fun / creepy little bookmark or coaster. People have really enjoyed making them. And the lovely piece is that we have the opportunity to weave both on a 4-inch loom, and I will also have some school looms, some 2-inch looms for people to use to put together our little flat rat. If you're considering the course, but really don't like the idea, find it a little too creepy, I actually have an alternate pattern. This one looks a little creepy too, but this will be also you making a flower instead of the flat rat. This one was woven specifically as part of a Halloween outfit, so it looks a little bit creepy itself, but the basic flowers can be done in many colors. So that's our morning classes. In the afternoon, we're going to answer the essential questions that people run into as soon as they learn how much fun it is to make these little pin loom squares. And that is, what can we do with them? How do we join them together? So the afternoon will be taken up with 2 projects. One is that we will be doing some practice, and you'll receive a lot of resources about overshot patterns, so that it's looking at the possibility of easily weaving patterns into the pin loom material. And then equally or more important, we'll also be practicing about 5 different joins that are used primarily with pin loom weaving. There's obviously no limit to the number of joins one can do, but I find that there are a couple joins that I end up using probably 80% of the time, as well as others that become really important depending on the project. The idea is that we will practice all of those, and you'll be able to take home a great deal of material, both on overshot patterns, as well as different joins that can be used. And at that point, then, the reason that I sort of call it pin loom weaving A to Z is that once you're able to weave your fabric and join it and produce the kind of pattern you want, the sky's the limit. There's nothing you can't do with a pin loom. I had a friend who said, you know, pin loom squares are a lot like Legos. There's nothing you can't build out of them. And that's kind of how it's felt to me through the years. So that having these basic skills can take you pretty much anywhere you want to go. I will certainly be bringing a number of examples of things that I've done, simply, hopefully, to just point out the many different ways one can go, whether it's in blankets or shawls or 3-dimensional objects. And like that horse that I showed you, some of my favorite things involve 3-dimensional objects simply because they're smaller. It only needs a certain amount of weaving. And for me, at least, there's a great deal of enjoyment out of making something, either as a gift or, well, I'd like to say these are all gifts, but ironically, I have a lot of difficulty giving them away. I enjoy having all of these animals around. The other thing I wanted to point out, and this is a booklet actually from a different class I taught, but my intention always is to bring along complete printed instructions. These are kind of bound in a kind of, I can't remember what you call it, but it's a flat binding that lets you have an ongoing resource for the long run in terms of all the basics, weaving, joining, patterns, as well as some projects. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions here for you. I guess, well, quickly, because you just held that up. So that example of the pamphlet, um, there's that $5 material fee for the class. Is that for that handout that they get to take
That's
with them?
that is primarily for it. But I will also be bringing all the kind of yarn that people need for samples, so that
Okay,
there's no
wonderful.
particular. While I'd prefer everyone to use their own loom because that gives them that more familiarity. All the yarn is going to be available, both for the flat rat and for other weaving. But primarily, I really try to put together very complete and color pamphlets so that they have really good materials to take home and use for the long run.
Amazing. That sounds awesome. Thank you. I liked your comparison to Legos. It kind of also made me think a little bit of like in crochet, I think they're called like granny squares, right?
Right?
And like there's lots of patterns out there and
Mm-hmm.
projects that use granny
Mm-hmm.
squares. So could folks kind of use any of those projects with these pin loom square patches as well?
I think that's a very good point. Obviously, it's a slightly different technique, so it's not one to one. But yes, I think there's an awful lot of granny square patterns out there that would be easy to translate into pin loom weaving. And the other piece, bringing up crochet, is that I would encourage people to practice or know simple single crochet, because that is one of the almost essential skills, particularly used in some types of pin loom joining. So they work very well together.
Fantastic. Well,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much and for sharing all of your little whimsical creatures. I can see why they're hard to part with. They're just so joyful. So thank you again for joining us. And again, that was Margaret Stump talking about the one-day workshop Pin Loom Weaving A to Z, which is taking place on Saturday, August 15th. Up next, we welcome Marilyn Romatka, who's going to be talking about the Bow Loom Weaving Seminar class.
Thank you so much, Erica, and to people out there who have had classes with me at Convergences in the past, hi again. And to those of you who have not, let me introduce myself. My focus is folk art, and I teach a wide variety of techniques from painting to weaving to ethnic beading techniques. Each of these have the commonality that somewhere in the world this is being used. These are real folk art techniques. They are alive in far-flung cultures. The techniques that I teach, you could say, have survived the test of time. I have the best job in the world. I travel to far-flung countries and collect folk art techniques and then come back and teach them to enthusiastic students. So I've been teaching for a couple of decades. I started out teaching middle schoolers and high schoolers folk art techniques. And because of this, I mean, I continue to teach the kids. Every Tuesday, I am with the homeschoolers at the cooperative, and I'm teaching. These kids have taught me how to teach, because if if you can teach an adolescent in a thick cloud of hormonal angst, man, you can teach anybody. So my teaching style is fun and enthusiastic and engaging, thanks to the kids. So let me share my screen to talk about this sneak peek to the bow loom weaving class. And once again, The controls are covering my controls. Here we are, much better. Bowl loom weaving. This is a class that's going to be taught on Sunday morning. And this is rather excellent, a class to take if you've been taking complicated weave structure classes for Friday and Saturday or the week before. This is a nice, calm, meditative, hands-on class that will be a nice way to round out your Convergence experience. What is bowl loom weaving? This is a technique that gives a narrow weave with beaded selvages. We'll be using it to make either a single wrap bracelet or a double wrap bracelet. This is the project then that we'll be making in class. But the technique actually comes from the Akha people of northern Thailand and Laos. They use their version of the bowl loom to make decorations for the elaborate woman's headdress. But I've adapted the technique for making, as I mentioned, bracelets. I bring lots of colors of beads and lots of colors of warp so you can design a bracelet in your own personal colors or your favorite sports team or your university. This is my pan of bracelets that I've made to use as classroom samples in the class. So this is the class kit that you'll find. You don't need to bring anything but little sewing snips, which everybody seems to have at a Convergence. No chance of forgetting something that you need to come to this class because it doesn't need to be in your suitcase. It's going to be in my suitcase. So I will have an 8-page handout. I liked Margaret's phrase of, what was it, perpetual resource? This is something that you can go back to 5 years in the future when you say, I want to make another one of those. All of the instructions are there in photographs, and you'll be able to reproduce everything that we did in class, just in case, you know, we forget things. So this is a continuing resource. You will go home with a reusable bow loom, beads, beading pad, beading aid, of course, cotton warp, and weaving shuttle, a needle for hiding the ends, and all of the findings that you need to make it into a bracelet. So as I say, I've been teaching this to kids. The boys immediately recognize that it looks like an archery bow. But I've been teaching it at conferences since 2012. So of all the techniques I teach, and I teach 52 of them, this is my most popular class. This is class number 1. Oh my, that's a very younger version of me. So since you'll go home with your project and the loom it was made on, you will have opportunities to make more than just bracelets. I mean, anytime that you would use a ribbon, it's even prettier if it's a ribbon that has beads on it. And I look forward to seeing you in New Orleans. Are there any questions?
Yes, yes. Having never seen the bow loom before, this is new to me. Those pictures, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my gosh, it's really, it's really shaped like a bow. How fun is that? So I want to highlight just a couple things that you mentioned here. It sounds like there's going to be a finished project within this 3-hour window, right? They're gonna get to finish that bracelet.
In 3 hours, if they choose to make a single wrap bracelet, they will probably finish. If they choose to make a double wrap bracelet, they will probably be about halfway through. But I tell you, you will see at Convergence people walking through the hallways with these bow looms, and you can work on it at, you know, while you're chatting with your friends or in between classes. And probably by the end of the weekend, it will be done. Oh, it's on Sunday morning. Ha! Okay, Sunday evening while you're chatting with your friends before the flight on Monday, you can finish the project.
Yes, awesome. And we did have a question come in. I think it's awesome. So the students get to go home with that bow loom. So you're getting the loom as well in this class. But we had a question come in. Do we know the dimensions of those? Will those fit back in folks' suitcases?
Okay, not in the suitcase, but it does fit in the overhead luggage if you're flying. Uh, ask me how I know. These things fit on top of, and you would say, because it's a 4 foot loom. But it fits up on top, and even if there are already carry-ons there, there's space at the top for this thing. It does fit. And of course,
Okay.
if you're driving, it's no problem at all.
And it sounds like you have experience with that, and it's not been an issue getting that on and off
Yeah,
the.
I travel with these looms and they fit.
Wonderful. Well, this sounds so fun. I'm excited to see what everybody makes, and I'm excited to see people walking around with them as well. Again, that was Marilyn Romatka talking about the bow loom weaving 3-hour hands-on seminar taking place on Sunday, August 16th. Up next, we have Jenny Schu, who's going to be talking about the bead weaving sampler variations, which includes the right angle weave, the even count peyote, and basic herringbone patterns.
Hi there, my name's Jenny Schu, and as presented, I'm teaching the bead weaving class, which is going to be a sampler class. I'm excited to be teaching it as a sampler so that anybody who's had an interest in bead weaving at some point um, can get an idea of a couple different stitches, because some have maybe experienced some not great experience like times bead weaving, and then but you can fall into a different stitch and fall in love with it. So I am going to get myself on track and start my sharing for my screen. And this class is Sunday, August 16th. It's a full day class so that we can go through all 3 bead weaving stitches. And this is, as shown earlier, what it shows in Convergence and all of the intent. So we'll be reviewing peyote stitch first, then herringbone, and then the right angle weave. And what I'm showing right now is I'm doing samples for the class as bracelets just to show everybody an easy utilization of it. And I'm going through my button collection as I'm finishing bracelets, which we'll talk about in class. But I will also have samples of how much I can do in an hour. So I've been beading for probably 30 years at this point, 30 plus. And peyote stitch is what I started with as a kid, self-taught. And so I know this one inside and out. And that's my favorite one to start everybody on. It's great for beginners. Like I said, if you've never touched seed beads before, they can be a little intimidating. We'll be using a size 11, which is a pretty standard size seed bead, not too small, not too big. And just it has a lot of variations once you get the hang of it. It's easy to add more uh, concepts, like if you're a knitter or a crocheter, increasing and decreasing, you can think about it in bead form too. And this is what I use the majority of my jewelry and sculptural pieces, is peyote stitches, my baseline. I call this one even count peyote because once you get into count, it's a little bit different, and we'll discuss that in class. The next one will be the flat herringbone stitch. As you can see, it's got a little bit of an angle in the seed beads, hence the herringbone. It's a really lovely different structure or texture. Really fun to stitch along. It's 2 beads at a time, so it moves a little bit faster, but it stitches in a different direction than peyote stitch. And it has a lot more linear feel than the other 2 stitches that we're doing. And then right angle weave, which you also might see all over the internet as RAW, raw stitch, is the 3rd one. And this one isn't as intuitive, so we'll be kind of practicing stitching and learning beading in the first 2, and then move into this one for the last portion of the class. And it's great for if you're using one color. It has a nice open, airy patterning to it, but you can also do like some block patterns, which I'm starting to play with a stitch. And it has a really nice texture. The stitch also has a lot of variations to it once you get the hang of it. And this next one is just a sample that I've started for the class, like I said, with blocks. And this is in a different style bead than we'll be using, called Delica. But the first three bracelets I just presented are the seed bead that we'll be using in the class. They're dynamites. They're a nice, cost effective, but consistently shaped seed bead. So that kit that everybody's talking about will include the instructions for all three styles of seed beads. The enough beads to do the samples, but I will offer a kit for if you want more, if you want to keep beading, keep playing with it. I'll encourage people to bring some of their own bead stash if they have some, and we can look at if you can work those in or not. Thread, and I'm bringing everybody two different types of beading needles because some prefer short and some prefer long. The class itself, I'll ask people to bring what they usually bead off of, which could be a tray or like a mat, just so everybody has their own kind of thing they like. I'm gonna try to pack some backup options. And like I said in the class, once we get going with the beading, I'll be talking about different size beads. I'll have samples of these stitches in that. And I'll be updating the samples on my blog as I go along this year leading up to Convergence. So you can look them up on my blog or just Google Jenny Schu and Convergence 2026, or follow me on Facebook and Instagram. That's it.
Fantastic. I think you might have kind of answered at the end there a question that I was wondering. You said so pretty much in that $10 materials fee, students are getting what they need to make these samples in the class. Is it so you said they would just need to bring like a tray or something to keep the beads in? Was that the
Yep,
only thing they need to be aware of bringing?
that and like a pencil to take notes.
Wonderful. Okay. And then you mentioned having the optional kit, which is lovely for folks that want to take stuff with them afterwards. Can you talk a bit more about what that is, like what you have in that, or how much that would be for folks?
Yeah, I think I have it at $8. It's gonna include more beads, enough for a bracelet, thread, and well, those size bracelets. You can do really wide bracelets too. So up to the student, beads, thread, and another needle, just for backup. Some people go through needles, some people don't.
Wonderful. So your folks are definitely going to walk away with some samples, but if they're really a go-getter, they can also have the materials there on site for a full bracelet.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so very much for sharing more about this seminar, or sorry, this one-day workshop. That was again Jenny Schu talking about the bead weaving sampler variations, right angle weave, even count peyote, and basic herringbone. One-day workshop taking place on Sunday, August 16th. And last but not least for today, we have Penny Lacroix, who's going to be talking about the Wool Bump project.
Hi, everybody. I'm Penny Lacroix, and let me share my screen. Okay, here we go. I am going to be presenting the Wool Bump project on Saturday, August 15th in the afternoon, 3:30 to 5. This was a project that I kind of stumbled on, and it evolved as it happened, and it taught me a lot. And so what I'm going to be doing is just telling you about the whole process and passing on some of the knowledge that I learned while I did it. So I'll be talking about first how it started and how I approached it. This was back in 2017 because my dog was a puppy. I'll be talking about the fiber processing, and this part actually is kind of a big section in the presentation. It includes a lot of videos that I took at a mini mill when the wool was being processed. So I went to this mini mill and took videos of the scouring, the carding, the spinning, the picking, the everything. And so it's very interesting. You can see the machines at work and how they feed into a final process. And a lot of people have never seen a mini mill, so it's a neat opportunity. I'll be talking about my dyeing, and that's DYE. And then the weaving and selling it. And finally, at the end of this, I'm going to go into a little discussion about a very hot topic today called that we refer to as made locally. What is made locally, and are our handwovens made locally? So that's just at the very end that I will touch on. The materials, I will send a handout, which participants will need to print before Convergence and bring with them, and then note-taking supplies. There is no actual activity in this. It's just a lecture-based. I welcome feedback, but there's no actual hands-on activity. And there are no prerequisites for this class. Anybody who is just interested in the topic, really anybody off the street could come to this. And if anybody has questions, feel free to get in touch with me. Here's my contact information. And I'm really looking forward to being at Convergence next summer.
We're excited to have you there. And that picture, I love that you could almost barely see the dog in the bottom corner. He just blended right in. And thank you so much for going more into this project. I'm so excited to hear more about this session. Well, not right now, but like the actual session. Having heard you speak before about the Made Locally and other projects, I am sure it's going to be wonderful. So thank you again for highlighting the main points of this session. Again, that was Penny Lacroix talking about the Wool Bump project, which is a 90-minute seminar taking place on Saturday, August 15th. You can find more information and register on our website at weavespindye.org. You can look under that Convergence tab, head to Sessions and Leaders, and it'll all be right there. We're going to be offering these live session spotlights every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time until mid-November, and the recordings will be available on HGA's YouTube channel. So if you're interested in any of the other classes, please join us, and I look forward to seeing you there.